Hey there, quirky people! Today we're going to look at the mystical book of spells from the Marvel Universe. Wandavision introduced us to the infamous Darkhold. It is also called the Shiatra Book of the Damned, or the Book of Sins. The evil elder god known as Chthon wrote all of his evil works and spells on an indestructible parchment millennia ago. It was originally written on flesh, but later it was transcribed onto stone, and then on a collection of parchment which came to be called the Chthon Scrolls. After that, those pages were later bound together into a book of spells. Now this book will make some big contributions to the multiverse of madness. Wanda was seen looking into the book and learning a few spells. We don't know what kind of spells the MCU will take from the comics. The book could be completely different in live action. It may not even be written by Chthon. But let's look at a few spells that the MCU could adapt on the big screen. They did pick up Odin's enchantment upon Mjolnir from the books. So here are some crazy spells that the Darkhold could contain in the MCU. Spells to summon monstrous beings. The Marvel Universe has all sorts of crazy monstrous beings. Because Chthon existed outside of time, he was aware of all sorts of monsters that existed throughout eternity. So he wrote spells to summon or even create certain monsters, as and when they were needed. The creatures that can be summoned from this book are the Hellhounds of Mephisto's dimension. Then there's mist that can dissolve the bodies of all creatures around it. You could assume that it would look a bit like Goliath. Apart from them, a few twisted genies can also be called up. We're really interested to see the kind of monsters that the MCU's Darkhold can call in. Doctor Strange 2 is supposed to be a movie with horror sequences. So maybe the Darkhold could help in creating some of those horrifying scenes by calling in a few terrifying creatures. Prophecies that could call Chthon to Earth. We don't know if Chthon wrote the Book of Sins in the MCU, but Agatha Harkness did warn that Wanda had unleashed a dark monstrous power. So maybe that power could be the evil god Chthon himself. He wrote a few prophecies that could bring him back to Earth, and a couple of them even related to the Scarlet Witch. One is the Malachi prophecy, which says, "A child born of no man and no woman marked by sin. Daughter becomes mother, then will the great return begin." Now that Wanda has become a mother, she could have taken the first step to mark the arrival of Chthon in Doctor Strange 2. Or she could lead to the arrival of some other being like Mephisto or Shuma-Gorath. Spells to create and destroy vampires. Vampires do exist in the MCU, and apparently they are universal beings. Now that Marvel has announced a Blade movie with Mahershala Ali, they'd need to bring in the vampires out of the shadows if they do exist on Earth. And the Darkhold could be of great help for that. It would help with their creation if they haven't been a thing on Earth till now. In the books, a few sorcerers of ancient Atlantis created a spell to raise their dead enemies as their pawns. But they ended up creating the race of vampires who killed their supposed masters and consumed their blood. Then those bloodsuckers scattered across the world, and one of them became the vampire king, Dracula. The Darkhold also has a spell called the Montesi Formula. It is pretty effective in destroying vampiric beings. Let's see if any of those story elements are used in the MCU. Maybe the Darkhold could also bring werewolves into the mix. Spells that could bridge dimensions. The Darkhold has been used by several sorcerers to open gateways to many hell dimensions. There was even an instance where Carnage attacked an ancient temple of Chthon in Indonesia. He killed the servants of the elder god by performing a blood sacrifice. Then using the Darkhold, he uttered a spell which opened a gateway to the dimension of Chthon. The MCU could literally do anything using these sorts of spells. Maybe Wanda's kids are stuck in a horrific dimension, and she'd open a portal to get them back. These portals could also be used to bring in another big villain or raise the level of horror elements of the Doctor Strange sequel. Other spells. The Darkhold also has spells to boost the mystical and psychic abilities of its users. But what's crazy is that these spells will drain the energy from others who are present in the area. So a spell like that could prove to be quite lethal. There's also a spell that werewolves could use to stay in their human form for long periods of time. If someone gets well versed with the Book of the Damned, then they could actually control multiple elements of nature. Users of the Darkhold could summon fire, windstorms, horrific floods, and destructive earthquakes. I just can't wait to see all the havoc that the Darkhold is going to wreak in Doctor Strange 2. Which other unique spells could the MCU bring in? Let us know your ideas in the comments. Leave a thumbs up and do press the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video. And don't forget to check out some more fun videos on our channel. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!